welcome back to my channel. My name is Eleanor and I want to talk to you about 5 books I have read over the last 2 months, 3 of which are horrors, and although we are past Halloween, I never feel like it's the incorrect time to read a horror. I will apologise in advance for this really harsh lighting, but it's the beginning of November in Scotland, and when it's an overcast day, there's literally no good light, so I have to deal with this really harsh overhead lighting, which makes me look like a ghost, but it's either this or shadowy darkness, so we'll see how this comes out. Once I upload it, I might hate it, but what can you do? The first book I want to talk to you all about is Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill. I, to my shame, took nearly a year to read this because I started reading this before I got ill last year. I read maybe like 100 pages, was enjoying it, and then didn't pick it up for nearly like 10 months. So it didn't take me long to get back into it. I really enjoyed this. This was a fantastic sci-fi. I really would recommend it. I mean, it did win the Arthur C. Clarke Award in 2018, so if that doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what will. It has been beautifully chomped by one of my cats. I don't know if you can see that, blessed. I love the cover of this. I just think it's really stunning. This is a story where humanity keeps reaching towards artificial intelligence and robots and going beyond with technology. This is a book about what happens when the AI and robots have a sense of sentience and they don't like being ordered about by humans, and they literally destroy humanity. And this is what happens when the AI and robots get what they wanted, but is actually what they wanted, and what do they do in this world? What is their purpose in a post-apocalyptic world where everything's gone and there's no humanity left? This deals a lot with grief, coming to terms with grief and processing your emotion. You're following Brittle, who is really trying to come to grips with their memories and their part in what happened during humanity's extinction, and I really enjoy the flipping between chapters of current present day when it's post uprising and extinction, and like the world's a desolate place just filled with robots who are rattling about trying to find purpose to life, and points of view with Brittle when they are back with their human and doing their originally created purpose. Yeah, it's a very like deep and heartfelt story. I really enjoyed it, and the characterization of all these robots and sentient kind of AI was just really interesting. I really enjoyed the kind of pacing of the story, the way it unfolded, and just the different topics that were discussed. I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. I totally recommend it. It's a standalone, and I think it's one that I know a lot of you would really enjoy. Sticking with the sci-fi theme, I reread Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I actually listened to it on audiobook this time because I physically read it the first time. The audiobook is so brilliant. I just love Andy Weir's writing and how he writes his characters and his characterization and the personalities he puts into people. I just find they're so well done, and the audiobook was just brought everyone to life in such a really unique way. And you know, there's a companion character in here who has a very special purpose and ability, and I was a bit wary about how that would come across in the audiobook and how that would be conveyed. The same kind of concerns I've got about the upcoming TV show adaptation. I'm not sure how that will be conveyed, but I'm eagerly anticipating that. This was just really fun to reread, one of my favourite books, and I really enjoyed the audiobook this time. It just made for a very different listening experience. And yes, although I did listen to it on Spotify with my Spotify limit with my account, and I ran out of hours with that, like 50 pages before the end of the book, so I just physically read the last 50 pages because I didn't want to wait 2 weeks for my Spotify to reset to get the credits back. I don't know why they think 10 hours is a suitable amount, but I suppose that's the point, so that you pay for more hours, but I'm not going to do that. So if you haven't read Project Hail Mary, I would totally recommend it. Again, it's a standalone. I also really love The Martian by Andy Weir, so I would recommend both. If you like science fiction that's very intellectual and is very rooted in science, even when it kind of goes off-piste into like space science, things that we can't actually do yet. It's very, very grounded in realistic science and like things like that, which I really appreciate, even though I'm not big-brained enough for that myself. I really enjoy how Andy Weir writes it and conveys these concepts. I think they're very well done. The next book I read was Frutility by Nuzu Onu, and this book was sent to me by the publisher, Titan Books. I did a review on this on my TikTok when it was on its day of release. I really enjoyed this. It was quite a challenge for me to get into it. It was just a very different kind of horror, not one I'm used to. I really enjoy horror, but I am not very well read in it, certainly. So this was just very different for me. I did enjoy it. You're following two women who live in Nigeria. One is a British woman who has moved over there for her work, and another is a Nigerian woman who has grown up there. And this is so much about revenge and consequences for your actions and just being like a really spiteful person. I really like the tagline at the bottom here, murder, revenge, soup. Really sums us up well, and if the cover doesn't kind of give away what's going on. There's a lot of body horror in here. It's very, very graphic in its depictions of like different types of violence and harm on other people. There's a lot of racism in here. There's fat phobia. There's so much more. It's has a lot of trigger warnings, so very much so check that out if you're interested in reading it, just to be on the safe side if you're kind of wary of certain types of horror. And there's also like cannibalism as well to a certain extent. But I really enjoyed this. I've not actually read, I don't think, to my shame, book set in Africa. The whole continent of Africa, let alone in Nigeria specifically. So I really enjoyed learning about like different parts of the culture, and there's a glossary at the back with different words and terms that are used colloquially by different people in the community. Even though one of the characters you're following is like British, I believe the author is Nigerian and has grown up in England. It's just a very, very dark and twisted book about these just two women making a deal with like a devilish entity and just doing horrific things to hopefully get what they want. But at the end of the day, they're just horrible people. So they're not nice people to read about, and you actually are kind of rooting for their downfall. And it's very much about like these women taking revenge on the men in their lives because they feel hugely slighted by different men. So this was definitely a very strange one, and I will say that I was a bit hesitant. The first maybe 75 pages, I was a bit unsure if I was actually enjoying it. And that's just because the characters are so unlikable. But the more you get into it, they're written in the best way. They're not unlikable in a horrible to read and follow their perspective kind of way. They're unlikable in that you're enjoying reading about them because you want them to fail and to be destroyed by what they're doing. Although a lot of what's happened to them you kind of understand to a certain extent, but the way they go about trying to solve their problems and get revenge on the different things that they feel slighted by is so extreme. It is ridiculous. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and proceed with caution. I then read A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I partially physically read this and half listened to the audiobook. I find T. Kingfisher books really easy to listen to the audiobook for. I find them quite easy to follow along with. They're not very convoluted. And I'm not saying that as a diss towards her books or her writing. I just mean that for very complicated and in-depth, complicated and intricate books, I struggle to follow along with the audiobook for. But I flicked back and forth between this and sometimes did both at the same time. I had a really enjoyable experience with this. I love how T. Kingfisher writes her characters. I find them really relatable even when they come from a very different kind of life from me. I just think she writes different characters very, very well. They're very grounded in reality, and they have very intricate personalities and different conflicts between each other. They're very 3D, and even her kind of side, kind of peripheral characters in her stories are very fleshed out, and I just think she's very, very good at that. You're following Sam, who temporarily has to move back in with her mother in like the family home, and she thinks her mum's kind of going a bit round the bend, and there's been strange going on in the house, because that's where her grandmother lived before she died, and that's where her mother grew up, and Sam, the granddaughter, also stayed for part of her childhood. So there's some strange going ons, there's just very odd things happening. So it's very much about uncovering family secrets. Is the house haunted? Is there something weird going on? Why are the neighbours acting the way they are? I just thought this was a really, really enjoyable read. And even though it's a horror and bad things happen and there's some scary, kind of creepy elements to it, there's also just a bit of levity, there's a bit of fun, and I just think, yeah, T.K. Fisher could sing the praises from the rooftops. It's just very good at writing those kind of stories that kind of make, like, tread the balance between being funny and serious with a touch of horror. So I would also recommend this, and I just realised that when I took the sticker off, it made a bit of a mess, so I'll need to try and clean that up because I hate stickers on books. Why do they do it? At least it was a removal sticker and not a permanent one. And lastly, I want to talk about The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez, which has been translated. And I last year read her full-length novel, Our Share of Night. I buddy read it with Abby from Abby Pellinor. It's 750 pages and I thought it was far too long for what it ended up being. It was a very intriguing story, but I definitely think there's a good 150-200 pages that didn't have to be there, and it just made the story a bit more convoluted and kind of deviated away from the direction it was going. The first half was definitely a lot stronger than the second half, in my opinion. But I will say I did enjoy this short story collection, and especially for things like horror, short stories are a good indicator of finding out whether you'll like an author's fuller works or not. And this collection certainly gives the vibes and feeling of Our Share of Night. There's a lot of body horror in here, a lot of dark things happening to children, a lot of sexual related crimes, and a lot of things to do with like sexuality and people. I'm being vague, very vague. Quite a lot of these stories feel quite thematically similar. There wasn't a lot of kind of diversity in terms of theming for the different stories, in my opinion. Yeah, it's very much tied around like witchcraft and like magic and superstitions and different people's fetishes and people's desires to do like the unthinkable, but spoken out loud sort of thing. Quite a few stories are just a bit odd and quite taboo. I could imagine quite a few of these being very disturbing for people to read, so definitely check out the trigger warnings if this is intriguing you, but this would give you a good taster into what Our Share of Night kind of goes over a little bit, although they're very different kind of horrors. But Mariana Enriquez covers some very, very dark, heavy topics, but I did enjoy this collection and would look forward to reading more from her. I do quite like reading translated books. I just think it offers a very different insight into just reading books that are from English speaking countries. Yeah, and the cover is very intriguing. Although I will say, with quite a few short story collections I read, the story that kind of gives the name to the book, so in that collection there is a short story called The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. It's only like 4 or 5 pages. It's the shortest story in there, and I just thought it was a bit I didn't really see the purpose of it. It didn't really do an awful lot. I didn't find it like horror in any way. I just thought it was a bit of an odd inclusion and a bit of a letdown, because sometimes in these kind of collections you're looking forward to reading the story that named the whole book, named the whole collection. But yeah, apart from that, I had a great time. So that was the 5 books I have read recently. I'd love to know what you have all read at the moment, if you've got any other recommendations. If you've read any of these, I would like to know your thoughts. I am still kind of finding my feet with reading again and finding a balance that works for myself. I have a lot of unread books. I might do a video soon going through my physical TBR and get some recommendations from you all about what books I should kind of prioritise. We're definitely coming into the dark and cosy cold season, and I really want to keep up my reading game. So I'd love to have a chat with you all in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.